Right, so just something small to add to the seeds and the biology. So here we have, if this was the ovary, could be attached to the apical part. This is the ovule, or the seed to be formed, okay? Or could be attached to the base, okay? Can be also attached to any part. Now, where the seed is attached to the seed or the ovule and seed is attached to the stalk. This stalk is the placenta or the follicle. Okay, so where it is attached to, this part that is attached to, when it is dislodged or when it is broken off, it becomes the hilum. Okay, right. Then we can have the caruncle close to it. That's a raised area, and then we have a small hole in there. Okay, the microcarp. Okay, right. So that should be, so this is like the ovary. This is the seed or the ovule. So attachment can be apical at the top part or the lower part, or it can be mid portion. Okay, then it is attached to the ovary. More or less serves as an ovary, and also like something like a uterus or womb. Okay, because we said, because we have a connector. That is the placenta. Okay, connecting it to the ovary. Okay, and that is what we call the follicle, right, or the funicle. So, right. So I think at this point we have exhausted much. Let's look at some few points also to jot down for leaves to flowers to ovaries to seeds. Okay, let's look at how we can classify them. A very simple or summary of all that we have done. Let's look at that. All right, so let's look at these two summaries. We are going to look at the leaf to the seed, and then life cycle, and then we look at something small in evolution. Right, so we said that with classification, if it's only one, with what you are dealing with, okay, then we say simple. Okay, so this can be the leaf, can be the flower, can be the ovary, which has the ovules. Okay, right. So you can look at it this way as a classification. And if you have only one leaf, then we are looking at it as the simple one. If you have one flower, that's it. If you have one ovary, then we are looking at the fruits. Okay, so here you can also put the fruits here. So the ovary, then those ones becoming the fruits. Okay, right. So with respect to when it is only one, so that is 1:1 ratio from the stem to the end. Okay, it's 1:1. Okay, then that is a simple kind of leaf, simple flower, or simple ovary, or simple fruits. So okay, so that is one. Now if you say compound, then it means you have two. Okay, you have two either from the same thing, leaves. Okay, more than two or more, so two or more. You have the flowers, so the flowers too. Okay, so from the stalk. So here from the stalk. Okay, so here you can see from stalk to the end is 1:1. Let me make it this way instead of stem. From the stalk. Okay, the stalk is coming from the stem. Okay, so stem to stalk. Okay, by starting from the stalk to end is 1:1. Okay, so here from stalk to end, when you have what greater than or equal to 2, either for the leaves, for the flower, for the ovaries or ovules, which contains that, and then for the fruits. Okay, then that is compound. Right, so sometimes because we are looking at the stalk, maybe they are all arising from the same point. So from this point, you can say it can be on branch or branched, okay? Unbranched or branched, okay? So these are some of the things you should note. For instance, the branching, we are looking at the rachis to rachila, and then your final is the midrib, okay? That is with respect to the leaves, okay? And the midrib, right? Okay, then look at it. Then on branch, for instance, in terms of flowers, we have the raceme, okay? Raceme means bunch, okay, which means bunch. So that bunch may be unbranched, or that bunch may be what? Branched. So you can also have, so unbranched, you can also have raceme, which is branched, okay? Right. So, but they are all under compound, right? So that is one way to look at the classification, okay? So we can look at the leaves, we can look at the flowers, we can look at the ovaries, and then the final product, the fruits, okay? So that is, so simple means from the stalk to the end is 1:1. Compound means from the stalk to the end is what? At least one, at least, you see, at least 1 is to greater than or equal to 2, okay? So this will help you either with respect to the leaves, the flowers, the ovaries, the fruits, okay? So this is just to make the classification not sound so difficult. It's a simple way to remember. Now the third one that we always talk about is the sessile, okay? That means without stop. Without stop, okay? No stop. Straight from the stem. So that is on the stem, okay? So you can have one, just one as solitary, or you may have multiple, okay? Multiple as spike, okay? Right, so solitary, that is just from stem to this, that's one stem, you have one, okay? Or you may have one stem greater than or equal to 2, that will be the spike, okay? But this one, there's no stop, okay? So these 3 classifications will summarize all the various classifications that you have under leaves, under flowers, under ovary as to forming the fruits, okay? Of course, the ovules are fertilized to form the seeds, okay? So you can put this one here too. Seeds, okay? This is this, that. Okay, so this is, I think this would be a good way to remember things, to make the classification simple for us. Okay, so from the stock, it's 1:1, simple. From the stock, it is 1, 2, 3, and so on. 1, that is 1 is referring to the stock. 1, 1. Okay, of course, the stock we have what for the leaf, we have the peduncle. Sorry, it's for the flower. That's for the flower. We have the peduncle to the pedicel. And then for the plant, we have the petiole, petiolium. Then we have what? The rachis, rachila. I think the first one said rachis is rachila. Okay. Then we come to the midrib. Okay. So these are all part of the stuff we are talking about. When you have 1:1, then simple is 1 greater than 2, and so on, then it becomes compound, right? So under compound, so at a point they may all be coming to one part of the stock, then that one is on branch. If it is different points, then it becomes what? Branch, okay? And then raceme means bunch, usually with reference to fruits, okay? Fruits, okay? And so it can be racemose, so on. So this is the simple and compound classification as against no stock, the sessile. Okay, so that one we have also can have solitary, that's just 1:1. If it's more than this, it's multiple or spikes. Okay, right. Now we have another classification that is also done according to age. That is a young one, the old one, or the position of the old one, and then the young one. Okay. So usually, if at the end, if the leaf, the flower, etc. is at the end of the stalk, at the end of the stalk, then it will be the oldest. Okay, because once it is at the end, you can't have anything coming to the end again. So they will all be placed at the sides. Now when it is at the side, you can still have some going up. Okay, okay. So usually the young one will be at the side. If this is blocked, then the young ones will be at the side. Now if it is not blocked, then the young one will be on top. Because if it is not blocked, it means you can add more above it. Okay, so the oldest one will be down here, right? So where the young one is on top, where the oldest one is on top, that is the sign. Where the young one is on the side is the corim. Where you can have one where they are all tilted to one side. Okay, either to one side, okay, or let's say the third one before we go to that one. That one they are all of the same age, so same age. So this one is restricted age, same age like that. This, they're all the same. That is the amber or amber. Okay. So let me put the spelling word there for you to see. So this is the corim. Sorry, not amber, but it's amber. Spelling. Amber. Okay. And this is the corim. Right. So that is what we have at this point. So this will serve to guide us in all that we do. Okay. So this one looks like everything is coming from the same point. Maybe something I can let you remember. As if it is an umbrella. Okay. As if it's an umbrella. Okay. And then this one, it is on the side. Then we add it on. Okay. Then that comes in. Okay. Right. Then we have the sign, which is all the kind. Which is the apex, and apex, so you have on the sides. Okay, right. So I think this should be enough for now. We'll look at the other points. Okay, so the most important thing is the classification according to number, then classification according to the age of the flower. This is done for flowers. Okay, that you are talking about. Okay, right. Now let's look at classification. Okay, so classification, but let's first of all look at the evolution. Now, it is said that at a point in time where there was nothing, there was a big bang. Okay, so that big bang theory said that there was an explosion, a very big explosion. Okay, boom, and then we have the universe appearing. The universe appearing, right? So when that happened, we started having the elements. The smallest element is hydrogen. They will fuse to form helium, and then that fusion will go on to generate all the elements that we have. So from there came the unit. So we now have our elements. So we have to form what? The molecules, form compounds. Okay, which is an example of a molecule. And then these compounds. So of these compounds, we have the bipolar kind of compound, which is the lipid kind. Okay, that lipid has a charge head and then a tail, which is unpolarized. Okay, and that's not charge. Okay, so this is the charge head. It may have charges, maybe phosphate. This is the head, so it's a lipid. So bilayer. That's one layer here, and sorry, that's a bipolar one. Charge here is no charge. Now this can associate like that. So this is lipid, and maybe phospholipid. Okay. So this is the lipid part. This is the phosphate part. Phosphate part. Okay. They can interact with charges. They can interact with van der Waals forces. Okay. And this is what we call the micelle. Right. So it's said maybe this probably formed in the water body, maybe the sea. So the micelle was formed, and then this micelle probably captured DNA or any of the nucleic acids, okay? Captured it. So it now contains DNA. Okay. And then from there we started having our living and started having our living things coming in. So living things in that sense, we are looking at the smallest, the archaea or the archaea, bacteria. Because these ones, they are prokaryotes. Prokaryote means they don't have the true nucleus. Karyote is the nucleus, true before the true nucleus. Okay? Then we come towards of course, we could have also started behind this one as a eukaryote. Eukaryote. Okay? Eukaryote is the particle. An example is the virus. It only needs a living thing to be able to reproduce. If it doesn't get into a living thing, it will not be able to reproduce. Okay? So eukaryote to prokaryote, then we come to the eukaryote. That means true nucleus. This is U means true. So the true nucleus, and pro means before the true nucleus. Okay? So eukaryotes, and the eukaryotes we have our what? We have our unicellular organisms. We have our multicellular. And of course, we have true organisms, okay? Organisms, proper, okay? So under this, we can have what we call we can have the Protoctista. Then we can have our fungi. Okay, then we can have our plants. We can have our animals. Okay, our animals. Okay. So these ones are there. Right. So you look at it, the picture as the Big Bang theory, explosion, element forming, molecules, compounds. The specific ones forming the polymers. Okay, the polymers can be the lipid. So a lipid can have a charged part and then polar part, and that is the bipolar compound. Okay, and this one can aggregate in water or maybe in the sea at the sea bed. Okay, aggregated, and then they took in what we call DNA. Was it by endocytosis or what? As it's taking up cells taking up something. And this endocytosis, was it by pinocytosis, which is a small molecule, or phagocytosis if it is a big molecule? Okay, right. So all those things will come into play, and then it was taking up this. Of course, along this one, we can have the eukaryote. That's a virus. It may only have some lipid layers in the DNA, but it's not a true cell. It doesn't have true nucleus. Okay? And these ones are nucleus, but they don't have nuclear membrane. Okay? But these ones have what? Nucleus and have nuclear membrane. Okay? They can be unicellular, multicellular, and then they can have a complete organism with various systems coming together. Of course, you can have a cell. From a cell, you come to tissue to organ, then you have the organ systems, okay? Organ system. Then we have the organism coming in. So the organs coming together to form the systems. Then you have the organism coming into play. Right. So this is a good example of how things are moved. But there's something I want us to look at the DNA or RNA level, okay? That's the nuclear material level, okay? So we are more or less, we have one cell, then I have two cells coming together, okay? These two cells, of course, are creating as well. Right, so usually those which are one cell, they have to have all the all functions by one cell, all the living functions, okay, reproduction, feeding, metabolism, all of them in one cell. But when you have different cells, the different cells will specialize for the various functions, okay. So the organism, first of all, a very simple organism, will usually want to divide without the sexual part of the kind of reproduction. So we'll have the reproduction, okay. So let's say very small one, if it is 2n, let's say 2n, that means it has two genetic materials, okay. Two genetic materials together as an organism. But you can decide to go by the vegetative reproduction, that means using part of it, or you can go by the sexual reproduction, okay? Right. Usually the very primitive, very lower primitive organisms usually use the vegetative, where they only divide, they can just divide. So it's binary fission, okay? Divide that, okay? Now the sexual will involve bringing a male and then the female together, okay? Right. So this one, the 2n, then it will divide to form another 2n, okay? That is how it will go. But when it comes to sexual, you can have the 2n here. It will have to have, it must have n as female, maybe gametes. So these are the gametes. Gametes are the sperm and then the eggs, okay? And then n male, okay? Must have these to come together. Now these 2n can be neutral. Neutral means it is neither. It's not looking like a male or a female, or it may be a male or female by appearance. In that case, one of the female part is sort of suppressed, or the male part is sort of suppressed, and then you have the other. So it may exist as neutral or as male or female. And then it will have this one, the gamete, the germ cells, okay, either to fuse to form the new organism. Okay, that's the sexual part. Okay, so the sexual part, this one, neutral, it can be male or female, or sometimes it can be hermaphrodite, both. Not looking like a male or a female, or having both, that is having a male and female appearance, hermaphrodite, not looking like any of them is neutral. Okay, so that one, it will be 2n. 2n means it has two, maybe two for the two nuclear material, one from the parents, one from the male partner, one from the female partner, like that. Okay, and then they will come together to form the zygote. Okay, and so always think about it this way: the vegetative, always the number of genetic material there, we have 2n, assuming one from each parent. Okay, so when it is vegetative, we just divide by 2. Okay, without bringing male and female together. When it's sexual, you have the one which is 2n. It has to produce half of the female and the male. Okay, either within itself, it will allow them to fertilize, or it will send it to another organism which is also distant away for them to come together. And that's where separate organisms is when you have a female and a male separate. Okay? But where you have the species not having either male or female, that's neutral, and then the fertilization will occur usually on the same organism. Okay, right. So like I said, the very low and primitive organisms usually will use vegetative. Okay, then as you advance, they start coming in with some kind of sexual production we call the conjugation. That one, the male is more or less, the male and female are represented by positive and negative. Okay. So that one, they come together, they exchange. One will have its whole genetic material going into the other one. Okay, that is doing conjugation, not usually by fusion of the male and female. Okay, so you have the whole, let's say one like that, another one like that. Okay, they lie side by side, and then the genetic material in this will go into the other one. They fuse to form a new one. That new one, that means the old cells there have not been changed to a new one because of their fusion, and they are starting a new life altogether. Okay, so that's under conjugation, right? But the proper sexual reproduction, you have the male sperm, the female egg fusing to form that. Okay, and like I said, if the organism is neutral, then that will occur on the same organism. If it's not, if it's separate male and female, then maybe they have to by some means meet. That is if they can move. If they can't move, then there should be some agent to bring them together. Like where you have a female pawpaw and a male pawpaw. The ring or insect can help with the fertilization. Okay? And so look at it in that sense. So very primitive, okay, vegetative propagation, that is binary fission. Or sorry, using part of the plant to produce new ones, okay? And of course, some kind of reproduction will also come in. And the other basic one is the binary fission, okay, also come in, okay, separate into parts. Then you come to the sexual. The sexual, we have the basic one is the conjugation, okay, and then the more advanced one is the sexual intercourse kind of thing, okay, intercourse or fusion of the male and the female, okay. So look at it this way. The basic, if you have any class, the basic one should start with this vegetation, and then the next one conjugation in that order. So if you take, for instance, the plant kingdom, maybe, or you are looking at the organisms like plants, you have moss, you have fern, okay, as you go up, you come to the angiosperm. The angiosperm are the flowering plant, okay? So to see that they are advanced, they can have, they will be able to have, they have the genital. The genital is the flower, okay? And it will have the female and male part, okay? So if the tree itself is not distinct as in female and male, then the fertilization will occur on the same plant or maybe by some agent, okay? But the lowest ones can have some kind of reproduction, okay? Maybe on the same thing, but at the end, that whole plant, which is very small, is converted to a new one and then starts growing, right? So that is the basic rule that you can be looking at. So always look at it this way, okay? Now sometimes the organism want to form spores. Okay, so these are hardened kind of thing which can withstand very harsh environment, okay? So that's for the 2N, okay? 2N, and usually as a form of withstanding environmental harsh, okay? And this is not going to be part of the sexual reproduction, but it may give rise to units which may be female and male, which will undergo the sexual reproduction, okay? Once you get to the male, female, and male, this is when male, female, and male becomes N, okay? Because they are going to be half. So that when they fuse, you bring back the same thing, right? So usually the N alone will not be able to stand because it will not have the full complement of the genetic material. Maybe a short life, something, just like the sperm has a very short life because it's just N. It will not have all the complement of cell and be able to survive for a long time, right? So this is a basic thing that we can be thinking about as we go through the classification aspect of biology. Right. So at this point, I think this will be what we would discuss for now. And as we go on, we'll look at how we can be able to do other things. Okay. So we'll look at the vegetative. So for the summary, something like this. Something like this. Something like we have a mycel kind of thing. We have eukaryotes, the virus, come to the archaea, bacteria, we come to, let's see, the Protista, which are the protozoa and so on. Some are also, then from here, you can have those which are not moving at all. So here, those which are moving, they may move or not move. Okay. Here we have fungi which will not move at all. Here we have the plants, which will also put this one. Plants which will not move at all. to the one photo. Okay, on this side we have animals. Okay. Animals, okay, which will also, some may be more stationary or some will be able to move. Okay. So the animals we can have, so all of them, so these are the fungi, the plantae. Protoctic stem can move or will not move. Fungi usually not moving, plantae usually not moving, animals usually moving depending on the plant. Okay. So here, all of them, you can have the just one single cell, you can have two, the multi-cell, or you can have the systemic kind of organism. Okay, the same thing here. Unicellular, that's one cell. Multicellular, multicellular, all of them, unicellular, multicellular. But the plant form usually with the multicellular kind of thing. Okay, so you can always look at them at this point. Always look at any of the organisms as unicellular level component, whether if it has multicellular, that means more than one cell. If it is a group of cells, different cells, there's systemic kind of organism. Okay. Now under the systemic kind of organism, you have cell, you have tissue, you have what? Organ, you have organ system, and then you have the organism. Okay. Right, so let's look at the picture. Now, like I said, this usually there will be 2n, or let's say n, okay, 2n. But when it comes to vegetative, okay, the same 2n divided to form 2n, okay. Sexual, you have the 2n parents, okay, divided to give n, okay. Right. Any of them can form, up to this point, any of them can form spores, okay, usually 2n, okay. And so then the cycle goes. So we can have a cycle of what? Sexual here, and a cycle of asexual. Okay. So sexual and then the n, and then asexual, you have the 2n divided to 4. Understand? Okay. Right. So that is how you can look at the whole picture. Right. So this is a summary of what you have done. It gives you a good guide. Alright. So smallest to the biggest. Vegetative, sexual, okay, and then you can have, so either sexual alone or vegetative, or some may have the two together. And the two together is usually at the lower level. At the lower level, some combine, most of them combine the sexual and asexual together. Right? Okay, so I think this is a good summary. We'll come to the main points later. Thank you.